yeah, for posterity's sake,
Gosh, we gotta be good.
You don't have to be good.
Sound
It's
like we
okay.
know what we're talking about.
You pretend. I pretend a lot, actually.
I will turn off my phone so I don't hear anything. So I don't hear any mooing in the background.
Yeah. So, Marty will let you answer this question. We'll let you bring us home. So, Rita and John, in your idea, what is a metaphor? What is it?
For me, it's a word, a phrase, or an image that has literal meaning, but also enlarged meanings or symbolical meanings that can be interpreted in different ways. So you've got a literal interpretation, and then you can play on that based on the image or the phrase.
Yeah.
Okay, go with that. It's using something as an example.
Using something as an example.
For example, you could ask me for a piece of
Yeah.
And that was a metaphor for saying, this is all you get, girl.
paper. No, it was, be more specific.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have anything to add, Molly?
Well, a metaphor typically compares unlike things, but doesn't use the words like or as. You know, where the simile uses like or as, but a metaphor is two distinctly different things being compared to make a point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're using metaphor in more of a broad sense. So it is a figure of speech, like similes, like other things, in which a word or phrase is applied to an object or action to which it is not literally applicable. So something that is not the literal definition of a word, but you're using that metaphorical definition to describe your thing and give it more context, more meaning, more depth. So, what examples? Off the top of your head, what's a metaphor? What's an example of one?
Oh gosh, the descending dove, that would be a metaphor for peace. It's symbolic too.
Yeah.
So maybe we shouldn't include symbols.
Just symbols.
I mean, yeah, metaphor, I always think of like, when I was trying to say, gosh, how do we really explain it without like, the English, the definition. I think a picture can be a metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Calling Peter the rock or foundation of the church.
Yeah.
Yes.
Anything else? It doesn't have to be Bible, it could be anything.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I should have said that first.
It's okay.
We're starting out not in the Bible, and then we'll get to the Bible later.
Yeah. Very general, and more specific.
Yeah. Cicada.
Okay. In like a relationship, you would say, you are my heart.
You're my heart.
Yeah, H-E-A-R-T. Because you're not really the heart, you are.
What?
But it's comparing
You're,
the relationship notion of creative fun.
Yeah.
But I'm one of the few people who can actually say you are my sunshine.
Yes, you could.
But
For other people, it'd be like,
Okay, let's see.
it's not really about gas.
I'll fire.
All right. That's it's gonna be a very difficult hill to climb. I'd be using a metaphor.
Unless you're talking about walking up a hill. If you're
Yeah.
talking about
Like
some
A
other
job.
process, getting through seminary, it's hard to
hard hill.
climb.
We're going good places here. That was so great. So some of the examples, these are some more broad general metaphors we use in a lot of different things. We have like, time is money, love is a journey, argument is war, ideas are food.
You know, food for thought.
See? So these are the concepts behind some of our common metaphors. So you have broad metaphors or conceptual metaphors, and those are things like time is money, argument is war, even like you are my sunshine or Peter let's walk. And then nestled within those, you have more specific metaphors or linguistic metaphors. So, can't afford to waste time. That's a specific metaphor that utilizes that broad metaphor of time is money. You could also say, I don't have time to spend, right? Nobody's actually spending time with our currency, time just moves on. You're using what you know about money to try to say something about time, because time is kind of difficult to talk about. Same thing with love. So you could also say, we can go the distance. Well, I mean, I guess you could go on a long hike with someone you love. That's true, but when you say we can go the distance, normally you're not talking about an actual distance or an actual journey. You're talking about the life cycle of the relationship, and you can go all the way of the relationship's life cycle. And then I defended my argument, where it's not defense like it is armies and castles, that kind of defense. We've made defense now also mean more different things. So you can use a lot of that war language also in arguments. And then cooking up a good idea. You're not actually cooking anything, but it fits within that ideas of food metaphor. So this is one thing to keep in mind, especially as when we transition to Bible reading, is because a lot of times you have statements like, we can go the distance, and that just sounds like, oh, a lot more literal than it actually is. And it's because it has that conceptual or broad metaphor that's nestled underneath. So sometimes you gotta do a little bit of unpacking of what's going on. So speaking of unpacking, we are going to break down. So we have So in your broad conceptual metaphors, you have two parts. The first part is the target. And the second part is the source. So, the source is always used to describe the target. So what you're really doing is you're utilizing stuff in your source to try to explain something about your target. So you're using things that you know about journey that you can then relate over to love, because love is really hard to describe. And so you borrow things from journey to help describe love. So, what do we know about journeys that can help to describe love?
Sometimes a journey is pleasant and sometimes it isn't.
Okay.
Just like love is sometimes pleasant or wonderful and fulfilling, and sometimes, yes, heartbreaking.
Journey takes time.
And usually you have a GPS or a map or something that you follow.
Yeah, it's kind of like directions or following. Yes?
Well, branching off of it, taking time on both a journey and in love, you cover a lot of different spaces or things or events or
Yeah.
locations or steps. It's not like you just sit in the cemetery and time
And all of a sudden you're
passes.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it takes work.
Yeah. So it has some goals. So love and journey. Hopefully you have some goals. But obstacles to which not when travelers, so you have people who travel on a journey, you have people who are in love. And then it's this process, right? So this is can. Now, what can't? So what about journeys is unhelpful about describing love?
Well, I think you usually plan when you're ready for a journey, and you usually don't plan when you're ready for love.
Yeah.
It's more spontaneous.
Yeah, you have a little more control over a journey than you do over love. As far as, the emotions, the interactions.
Yeah.
Oftentimes journeys can be, and we talked about the obstacles, but sometimes you dread it.
Yeah.
Oftentimes you go, God, I gotta go there.
The negativity.
The negativity of it.
Yeah. So, traffic. I can't really think of anything off my top of my head about love that would make it traffic. Yeah, it's just, but it's part of the journey. If you're going somewhere, especially if you're on heel, it's gonna be traffic. Destination. So you might both have goals in a journey and in love, but do you ever get anywhere in love? Do you actually arrive at a destination? What would that destination even be? It kind of falls apart there. The
You may
metaphor.
not have the same destination in mind.
Yeah.
Well, that's very true.
So, what? So, when we think about describing love through a journey, what about love can we not describe through a journey? What are we missing if we were only talking about love through a journey? What parts of love?
The stability of love. You know,
Stability.
The finality of a journey. People are on a journey. You're gonna get there, or not.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
There's gonna be an end, hopefully with love.
Yeah. That's kind of like the flip side of the destination one, right? Yeah.
A journey doesn't involve emotion, as like love does.
Yeah.
Road rage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sonia, that's happy, sort of as you come from, right? Although, you know, those pleasant and unexperienced in the journeys can relate, you know, so it really depends. Mine I have a little bit of fun though. I don't, you know, like watching my parents and my family, there was always challenges with the in-laws. I don't know what part of journey we can use as a metaphor to talk about that part of love, but it's there. But it kind of falls apart. And then along that same line,
Are they the little side trips?
Yeah.
Pit stops along the way?
potholes.
Other people on the plane, or the people in
Uh-huh.
the restaurant, or the people that.
The distractions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Different kinds of love.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so this whole time we've kind of been talking under the underlying assumption of romantic love. But what about family love? What about sibling love? What about love for children? It can all, love as a journey can still work, but especially a journey, usually you think you're going on one journey, and so usually that's one journey with your romantic partner. And so if you only use love as a journey, you might miss all those other different types of love out there and not be able to map in how love of your parents and your spouse's parents and your children and your siblings and your pets and
Oh, your cat.
you know, your brothers and sisters in Christ, how that all can also go in. And it's all love, it's just not usually that typical journey that we think about. So it's all trying to make you think about how good metaphors are, but also their limited scope. So, using everything we just talked about, love and journeys, what are some specific metaphors we can write from this broad one? How can we use journey to describe love? So remember we've already had love as a journey, and then as a specific or linguistical metaphor in that we said one would be like waking in the distance. So using all of this, we know that journeys can talk about and relate to love. And keeping in mind everything it kind of can't, what are some of those small metaphors we can say about love and journey?
That's a good question.
Well, it's unknown. I mean, there's an unknown to it.
It's not tangible.
Yeah, just saying it's a journey. It's a journey to where? Is it a journey to marriage? Is it a journey to
And after,
friendship? Is it a
Yeah.
journey to?
well, once you reach marriage, is it no longer love?
Right, that's right.
Does it
that
just
was that
transition to
yeah.
different?
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you could say there was a journey, that we are going into the unknown, right? Looking over a specific metaphor from it.
How about we are on this path together?
Yeah.
Mhm. I like that.
Oh.
We're at a crossroads, right?
Maybe not good.
Some of these things are look good, some of them are bad, it's a mixed bag. It's been a long, bumpy road.
Oh, yeah.
We're just spinning our wheels.
That's negative.
Relationship is a dead end street.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah. I'm in this for the long haul. There we go, I gotta end on a positive one.
There you go.
So you have this thing as love is a journey, and we think of a lot of really cool stuff about love when we say this, love is a journey. But there's also so much more we can pull out when we take that metaphor further. We dive a little bit deeper and we say, okay, so if love is a journey, then what does that mean?
And so frequently, we individually, as we hear those words, then we internalize it to our own journey.
Yeah.
And that's when I might read something and my image of what love is a journey is totally different from someone else's love
Yeah.
is a journey.
Yeah. Because I could say, well, you know, love is a journey, and it could mean we're in this for the long haul, or it could mean love is a journey. And it means it's been a long, bumpy road, right?
Maybe
And we're looking at a crossroads.
Exactly.
But if you just see the image or read the phrase,
Mm-hmm.
then it becomes your personal interpretation
Yeah.
instead of
Because you bring your own
you bring your
experience to it.
experience
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah. On the flip side, if you just read We Can Go the Distance, you might not get all the same levels of nuance as if you knew that related back to love as a journey. So when looking at metaphors, especially biblical metaphors, it's really important to keep both of these two different things in mind. To keep the broad metaphor, the conceptual metaphor, the love as a journey, and then to keep all the specific things in mind too, like that we can go the distance. Because a lot of the times we write more of the linguistic, specific, we can go the distance metaphors, and we have in mind the broad love as a journey. But if you're just reading it, you might not know that that's what they had in mind. So you gotta do some work and some unpacking to realize, okay, what are they actually meaning behind this? So, you ready for a trick question?
Sure.
So not everything about God in the Bible is metaphorical. There's a lot that the Bible says about God, the Bible says in general, that is literal. It means what it says, but it's important as we read the Bible to know that there are a lot more metaphors than we would commonly see. So start with metaphor. The Lord, a God merciful and gracious, slow to anger and abounding in steadfast love and faithfulness. Again, it's a trick question. So do you want to give up or do we want to?
Is there not one?
They are, but it's really, really hard to tell as it is written right now.
Well, being merciful and gracious is just, you know,
Adjectives. People literally translate them.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's another one too. But it's a trick question because the metaphor is actually back in the Hebrew. So when they originally wrote it in Hebrew, they didn't write merciful, they wrote woo. And so the person who was translating a Bible into English for us said, okay, God is not a womb. What they're saying is God is merciful. Because they think that like merciful relationship, like growing somebody in your body and holding somebody like that, and that kind of care relationship and giving up your own body to serve somebody else and all of that stuff, we can kind of relate and think about as merciful.
And is it womb in terms of nurturing? Rather than, does it have to be
Physical.
literally the womb?
Physical womb. Is the Hebrew word the same? Describing the physical womb.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's the physical word, it's the literal word.
Right, that was a trick question.
Yeah. I couldn't know that.
Yeah,
And then
that's what I said, it's a trick question.
Probably slow to anger. There's
Yeah.
like-
So that one literally translated into long of nose. Which, in the time it was written, long of nose would have been a metaphor for slow to angle. Because one really, so there were some metaphors that are really, really universal. And those metaphors are metaphors that are rooted into like how bodies behave. So typically when you get really, really angry, you get hot, right? You heat up. So angle is hot is a metaphor that's pretty consistent across the board because pretty much all humans, when they get angry, their blood flows, it circulates, they get hot. So to have a long nose means that it takes longer for you to get hot. You like have a longer fuse. You don't like get your red hot face and your red hot nose as quickly because it takes more time because you have a long nose. So you're slow to angle because it's slow to
Turn red.
fully heat up and turn red.
Interesting.
But what do you think of when you think of long nose?
I either think of Pinocchio or Cyrano.
And for me, it was Cyrano.
See what?
Cyrano de Bergerac.
Who?
Cyrano de Bergerac, Rosalind?
Shakespeare.
This is a Shakespeare character. And, has a long nose.
Yeah, Shakespeare. Is it Shakespeare? No, it's not Shakespeare.
It's French, and
Yeah.
I've forgotten who it is. Actually, that
And-
is.
He can't talk to her, so he writes for his friend what to say. So that his friend can do it. And he is
I don't know. I thought it was a real person. Not a.
I don't know if it's based on a real person or not.
I don't know. But it implies that Cyrano was the one actually in love with her, but he knew that his friend wanted to woo her. So, and he figured he didn't have a chance because of his long nose as a disfigurement.
Okay.
And so he writes for his friend to
Yeah.
woo her, thinking that would make her happy. So he's sacrificing himself in order to make.
It does sound Shakespearean.
It
but-
does.
A little bit Shakespearean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I've forgotten, for the name I knew, but I could not pull up
So,
you being the theater teacher.
Well, yeah. And it wasn't just theater, it was from English class though too.
Well, I was there too, but I forgot.
Well, it's been a
No
day or
longer
two,
there.
it's been a mile or two since then.
There you go, there's a metaphor, it's been a mile or two, which means I'm old as I could possibly be.
yeah. So,
Edmund Rostand, R-O-S-T-A-N-D,
Huh.
wrote Cyrano de Bergerac.
See, I wouldn't even know how to spell it.
And it was performed in 1897, that's why you don't know that it's
but y'all are alive, right?
Of course.
Reproduction.
So, if you had that person in mind when you read God is not a nose, you might be like, God is disfigured and can't love us directly? Like, that's kind of weird. If you think of Pinocchio, Pinocchio has a long nose when he's lying, right? So, if Pinocchio has a long nose, he's lying, so that makes no sense. So, in order for us to read it and have a chance of understanding it,
Right.
the Bible does the work for us of translating it. So I say all this to say, not to like scare you into you never actually understand the Bible, because that's not true. But just to realize that there's a lot of metaphors in the Bible that we may not even originally see, because all Bible translators translate. And sometimes they translate a metaphor into a more current metaphor. Sometimes they translate something more literally. And sometimes they sometimes they do like a literal metaphor translation. So they don't change it at all. They keep the metaphor there as it would have been in the original language. And sometimes they take the metaphor out completely, like they did, they're like, nope, no metaphor there.
That was a good time. That was a good time to do that.
Right.
So are we thinking about during King James time, when he commissioned having the translation of the Bible into English for the English people to be able to understand? Is that when we're thinking that we lost some of these Hebrew connections? Or is it, I just don't know enough about other translations, if they're still going back to the original Hebrew, or are they taking the King James commissioned?
I'm not entirely sure. Usually, like the New King James Version, right, went back to the King James and updated it. But most biblical translations will go back to an original language. So that could be original Greek, because some of the Old Testament Greek, a translation from the Greek. It could be original Hebrew. It depends, but I know, like, university should at least, in the translated committees, they would have been looking at some of the original text and languages and pre-English stuff. So when they looked at it in non-English, they had to figure out how a non-English reader could read it and still try to figure out what it meant.
Yeah, because before King James, wasn't it more common in England to have the Latin translation?
Yes.
Because it went from like Hebrew or Greek into Latin and then Latin into English.
Yeah, that was really common.
I think so.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So this is honestly, it's just to keep in mind that there was more going on. And a lot of times we can we're not doing intense academic study, that it really, really matters that you know the original language and you know all these complexities, because you got what it meant on the translated portion. So there was, I think we can put a good amount of trust in our translators, and I think we did a good job. But there was more metaphors in the Bible than we would originally see.
I always think about kids playing telephone, we used to call it too, passing messages, and how it changed a little here and there every time it went with
Yeah.
it, so, yeah.
Yeah. So, we're going to have a lot of fun with Psalm 23. I'm going to read it, and then we're going to pull out what metaphors we see, and then okay. And then we're going to see if we can divide it with no metaphors at all. Only literal language. So, Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd.
There's one.
I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil. For you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord my whole life long.
I think it's all literal.
He is.
The Lord is my shepherd. Isn't
God is literally your shepherd.
Yes.
Are you a sheep?
Yes.
The sheep have advanced since I've seen them last. Hawk, they have thumbs.
And wear glasses.
Oh,
So,
Well, green pastures,
okay.
still words.
Yeah, so there's lots of imagery, right? You got shepherd, green pastures, still waters.
it's your daughter, you gotta make sure
You
there's
gotta
not a
check,
problem.
yes,
Yeah.
I bet you're at Bible study.
Other metaphors.
well, restoring the soul, a shepherd doesn't restore soul necessarily, so.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and then the metaphor of the valley here representing evil. Or darkness, or the unknown.
Yeah.
And the rise of death.
Yeah. Which harkens back up to shepherd, right?
Mhm.
And you also have
The
table.
table.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot, I think, in that third
Mhm.
stanza.
The oil and the cup.
Yeah. So, we've got going on here.
And the house of the Lord.
Yeah. So the first two stanzas are really focusing on this shepherd metaphor, right? You have the big metaphor of God as shepherd, right? So you have this shepherd source domain describing the target of God, and then you have
Green pastures.
at least two stanzas talking about what exactly that means. You have two more stanzas that are little specific metaphors that all go back to that original
Things that a shepherd
God as
does.
shepherd.
Right?
So shepherds take care of all the needs they should want, guides them to green pastures and still waters, and those kind of actions are restorative, leads them in the right paths. And so even if you as a sheep walk through darkest valleys and have difficulties, the shepherd is still with you, and you have the rod and the staff as weapons and guiding points, things used to help guide and also defend our enemies, to comfort the sheep. So you all have that going back. And then you probably could pull from the third stanza still back into shepherd again. But really we're working more into like a house or a table type source. It kind of changes a little bit.
Mhm.
And so talking more about how God is preparing a place for us, a place that the table will be all welcomed and anointed. We have everything we need, and there's goodness there for all our days, and we will live in that place that God has prepared for us.
Although I'm stretching my mind in the third stanza too, make that feel more like a barn for the sheep.
Oh.
To prepare a table, which would be the, like,
Like the feeding
the
trough.
feeding trough. The anoint my head with oil, not necessarily unless, you know, there is an injury or whatever, and it would be the ointment. My cup overflows, water provided. And I shall dwell in the house of the Lord, you know.
You stay in the comfort of the barn and the place that the shepherd's prepared for you. So yeah, you can just actually work like the shepherd. Maybe stretch a little bit.
It's not as strong. as the
Usually
other.
the house of the Lord is like the temple in Jerusalem, but I don't know. None of us are fun to play with. I think it's okay to play over.
Well, I'm trying to hang on to my sheep.
We lost the sheep.
I love my sheep.
Okay, so having done all that really fun work, how can we write this with no metaphors? Go stanza by stanza. How will we write the first stanza with no metaphors?
Are we talking about just taking
Yeah.
out the metaphor
Mhm.
completely?
The Lord is my protector and provider, I shall not want.
Yeah. We can kind of agree that like shepherd goes back to protector
But
and
you still say
provider,
a protector.
which that can be a literal thing,
Or
right?
you could say the Lord protects us. So instead of saying he's a protector, which is a man, you put it as a her. The Lord is protecting me, the Lord protects me.
And provides for me.
The Lord
So maybe we need to go verbs instead of
protects
names.
me and provides for me.
He leads me,
Lord, I won't be afraid. I fear no evil.
he calmly leads me. He leads me because I still work, so it's calm. He leads me and I'm calm. When he leads me, I'm calm.
And comforting.
Yes. He restores my, of course, we don't want to think soul is a metaphor, because we believe
Yeah.
soul is true.
We could keep he restores my soul.
Mhm.
I think that's fair.
My heart, my emotions, my soul, the intangibles.
And he leads me in, he leads me correctly, or he leads me well, instead of
Alright, travel.
in the right path, because that becomes almost a
Oh,
metaphor.
yeah.
Yeah.
He leads me. He
To make
leads me
choices.
wisely.
Safe road?
Safe, well, there's roads of that too. Or he leads me safely.
Yeah.
Or he leads me,
For time's sake, we will stop and just do this one. So let's compare. How do we feel about the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in right paths for his name's sake. Versus, the Lord protects me and provides for me. He calmly leads me and I am comforted. He restores my soul. He leads me safely.
Well, the traditional version is poetic, and
Yeah.
ours is not really poetic, it's
Yeah.
more
Right.
statements of fact.
that's right.
Yeah.
And that one brings in emotion, whereas this one is
Yeah.
kind of blah.
Yeah.
The difference between creative, word choices and like legalese.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or sometimes academic writing is so dry.
So, what would the Bible look like without metaphors? What's kind of we were talking more the difference between this version and this version? What are we missing when we don't have metaphors?
Boring.
Boring. Yeah.
It's not something that is enticing. It doesn't draw you in. It doesn't make you make the connections as clearly, because you could say the Lord protects me, but do you really understand all of the depth of that?
Yeah. You can picture how a shepherd protects his sheep, and it's this literal protection where the sheep is lost and what can eat them out loud and from the shepherd. Whereas protection, you don't really know what that means unless we have that source domain to help bring it out. Yeah. So, how do we speak in metaphors in our daily lives?
And it depends on what I'm doing. In my daily life, but
I think we say things unconsciously, hardest work.
the cliches that we can learn.
Yes.
Burning with rage, your spirit's sore, your spirit's full, you're wasting time.
Time is
It's been a
money,
bumpy
and
road.
one way even.
Yep,
It's been a bumpy road.
Been a bumpy road.
bumpy,
yeah. So a lot of it is like, we have a bad habit of, especially you get very Englishy and only have a very like poetic understanding of metaphors. which, I mean, poems have metaphors, right? But metaphors aren't only found in poems, and they're a lot more common around us because, again, it can be really hard to say what we mean when we say he protects me. So we say he is my shepherd. Because that means something a little bit deeper than just he protects me. So we are constantly drawing up on different images, models, and such metaphors to help better describe the world around us, to the point where it's really gotten almost unconscious in a way. And so like when we were back during Psalm 23, we were pulling out things, we're like, is that a metaphor? Is that a metaphor? Well, you're not literally a sheep, so God can't literally be your shepherd, right? So it's just important to realize, A, how much metaphors we use in our daily lives, and to also B, how many metaphors, this is not a new thing to us enlightened people, but humans have always been talking in metaphors, so even our Bible and our oldest texts also are full of metaphors. I think we already kind of covered that one. Next question, how do we read the Bible seriously while also understanding its metaphorical context? So I think sometimes people have a bad habit of you either take everything on your Bible page literally, and that's just the rock-hard truth, or then if it's not all literal, it's not good. So you kind of imagine that it's not all literal, so if it's not all literal, what good still is there? Like how do we both address the metaphors and the seriousness of the Bible?
Well, I think kind of like you're saying, if we understand the metaphorical aspects, it helps put things in context or give meaning to it.
Yeah.
Because when I think of the Lord as my shepherd, well, a shepherd wasn't just a protector of sheep. I mean, that was his livelihood. They were sometimes his pets, sometimes, you know, it was a lot deeper relationship than just a protector.
Yeah.
And so when I think of the Lord as my shepherd, I think about all those kind of things.
Yeah.
Not just always protecting.
Yeah.
Because the shepherd really loves the sheep.
Yeah. Yeah. It really opens us up more to a deeper understanding. Yeah, you get to go a lot deeper, which is funny. And I think that going deeper and saying, okay, shepherd means protecting sheep, but it also means so much more than that. And almost in my mind, in a way, you're taking the Bible almost even more seriously. Just thinking, oh, what could this all mean? What could this all affect? So you are going deeply on taking it seriously. So you can take the Bible seriously and also recognize its metaphorical context. That's what you want to understand. And our last question, which we kind of talked about a little bit already. How do metaphors help us to understand and speak about God? And then how can it also hurt our understanding and speaking about God?
Well, sometimes when God is referred to as your father, if someone has a negative aspect out of a father, then that metaphor doesn't work for that person.
So kind of going back to when you're talking about joys, there's what can't get mapped on, right? So there's lots of things about fathers, right? And if you have a really bad father, you might have a lot of stuff that just really can't be mapped onto God. But then if all you have is the can't, then all you're mapping on is the can't, right? And so when you read metaphors and understand metaphors, what you're saying is God is Father, you have to understand like from Father can and can't be mapped on. And that's a really important tension to hold.
Well, and it all goes back to our own personal experience that we bring to it. It can help us understand if we have experience or understanding that we can relate to that
Yeah.
metaphor. But if, you know, I was orphaned, you know, when I was
Yeah.
a baby, and I don't have a real concept of what a father figure should be.
Yeah. And this question is our preview into next week, because next week we're talking about divine metaphors. So we'll be talking about God as Father, and God as Mother, God as King, other divine metaphors that we use to describe God. And the important part is that we use a lot of different metaphors. We use king, we use shepherd, we use ruler, we use judge, we use healer, we use friend, we use creator. So what's important and what helps prevent metaphors from becoming harmful is to use a lot of them. Because if you're only using Father, then you're trying to learn everything you can about God using only Father. And Father doesn't catch everything God is. It doesn't kind of always catch like the creating and the healing, even some of the motherly and some of the king and the shepherd. So you really need that good mix to clear up the picture. Because if you only use one metaphor, you miss some stuff. So using God is big. There's a lot of stuff about God. So you're going to have to use a lot of different metaphors because some images, some sources can only go so far. Right? Well, do y'all have any questions or comments or things you didn't get to say earlier?
I got a little distracted with this whole shepherd thing because growing up, well, in our church there at home, I guess when I was in first grade, they built the new sanctuary, and behind the altar is this beautiful, huge window of Christ holding a lamb, and then another lamb lying down, or sheep lying by his feet.
Yeah.
And I always grew up staring at that during church services, really connecting with the shepherd. And of course, I grew up on a ranch that had sheep.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I was thinking about how people who don't have that background it wouldn't have as deep a meaning.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, my whole childhood connection there. We even had baby lambs in boxes on our hearth when it was cold and freezing out and they decided to be born.
God is shepherd is one of those metaphors, which we may get into more next week, that we don't really know about anymore. Like shepherd is not a living occupation right now. You have ranchers, right? Which is similar but not the same. And there's, in some contexts in the ancient world, shepherd is also a kingly image. So it's also going to a kingly image. And there's just a lot more about shepherds than we don't usually know. So usually whenever somebody's preaching on God being a shepherd, there's a lot of background context they have to bring in because we don't have that anymore. We also don't have kings anymore. There are some kings in this world today, but they don't have the kind of power and control that they did in the time of the Israelites, right? So it's important to realize just we all have all sources, and we have all sources of what we think about kings, what we think about shepherds, and sometimes that's similar to, and sometimes that's different from what the person who originally wrote that metaphor was thinking. But those sources are different. They'll pull in from a different of a bucket, and that's one really important thing is we try to use our sources to describe our topics.
And I think people who believe that they have to understand the Bible just literally, that there should not be any metaphor, there should not be any hidden meaning, it's all literal, are missing so much.
Yeah.
So,
I'll pray us out.
please.
Lord, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for this time together to study and to learn and to experience you in new ways. Lord, we thank you. We thank you for this wonderful collection of texts that you've left us with that is full of metaphors and language and really cool ways of describing and understanding you. Because Lord, at the end of the day, we want to understand you. So help us to use all of the tools in our arsenal to help to know you better, to know you more fully, and to show more of you to other people. And so it's in your name that we pray.
And she includes in her prayer the metaphor at the end of the day.
That's right.
And, you know, sometimes